I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Standing outside my own front door in Willow Creek, HOA, my hand frozen on the brass knob, I listened to my husband Brandon's voice drift through the cracked window. He was on the phone in that hushed tone he used when he thought no one could possibly overhear. Except this time he was dead wrong. Mom, I know it sounds terrible, but her being deaf might actually solve our problems, Brandon said, his words slicing through me like one of those perfectly manicured hedges Karen loved to measure. She can't hear anything anymore. And that gives us the perfect opportunity to... My legs felt weak. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of nightmare straight out of an a horror movie. But I could hear him perfectly clearly now. Every single word cutting deeper than the last. Let me back up. 5 weeks ago, I woke up to complete silence in our cookie-cutter colonial on Maple Lane. I opened my eyes and reached for my phone alarm, wondering why it hadn't blasted me awake like usual. Then I realized I couldn't hear anything at all. Not the birds outside chirping their annoying dawn chorus that Karen always complained about in her monthly newsletters. Not my own breathing. Not even the distant hum of the lawnmower that was probably violating the grass must be exactly 2.5 inches rule again. Panic hit me like a $500 fine for an unapproved mailbox flag. I shook Brandon awake, trying to tell him something was wrong, but I couldn't hear my own voice. His face shifted from sleepy confusion to genuine concern as he realized. He grabbed his phone and typed, "Can you hear me at all?" I shook my head, tears streaming. We rushed to the ER. After hours of tests, Dr. Monroe, the ear specialist, delivered the verdict on a notepad because, well, I couldn't hear him. A severe ear infection I'd been fighting for weeks had caused sudden sensorineural hearing loss, complete deafness in both ears. "Will it come back?" Brandon had asked while I watched their lips move. The doctor wrote back, "It's possible, but no guarantee. We'll start aggressive treatment and monitor closely. Some recover fully, others don't." Those first few days were terrifying. I'm an elementary school teacher. Correction, I was. Suddenly, I couldn't hear my students laughing, couldn't hear the announcements over the intercom, couldn't function. I had to take immediate medical leave. My world shrank to silent, isolated bubbles. But Brandon seemed like a rock. At least that's what I thought. He took time off work to help me adjust, learned sign language basics, wrote endless notes, held me when I cried at night feeling like a ghost in my own life. His mother, Karen, yes, that Karen, the iron-fisted president of Willow Creek HOA, started visiting more often too. She'd bring her famous casseroles, always beige-colored to match the approved palette, of course, sit with me, scribble encouraging notes like, "You're so strong, Amelia. Brandon and I are here for the community. I mean for you." I felt grateful, supported, loved. But there were moments that fell off, tiny cracks in the suburban perfection. Like when I'd walk into the living room and Brandon and Karen would suddenly stop talking, their faces snapping into carefully neutral smiles. They'd slide a notepad my way with something casual, "Just discussing next week's HOA meeting, dear." But their eyes had that sneaky glint, the same one Karen got when she was about to slap a fine on Mrs. Thompson for her unapproved rose bushes. Or the way Brandon started tilting his phone screen away whenever I tapped his shoulder. Work stuff, he'd scribble. Karen's visits stretched longer, more frequent. She'd stay for hours, and I'd watch them having these intense, whispered conversations I couldn't follow. Their expressions were serious, almost conspiratorial. Whenever I'd point at the notepad asking what was up, Brandon would write, "Boring HOA real estate talk." Karen's worried about property values dropping if we let standards slip. Then there was the mail situation. Brandon started intercepting everything, bills, bank statements, and especially those dreaded yellow HOA violation envelopes that showed up like clockwork. "I'm just helping you sort it while you recover," he'd write, all thoughtful husband. It seemed kind at the time. I trusted him completely. Why wouldn't I? We'd been married 6 years. He'd never given me a reason to doubt him. The isolation of deafness was crushing. I couldn't call my best friend Nicole anymore. Everything went through texts. I avoided leaving the house because I couldn't hear cars, doorbells, or neighbors yelling, "Hey, your grass is half an inch too long again." I felt vulnerable, exposed, like the whole Willow Creek HOA was circling like vultures in pastel polo shirts. Every week, I went to DR. Monroe for checkups. Every week, the test showed zero improvement. He kept tweaking meds, but nothing worked until week 5. Yesterday, in his office, he ran the usual hearing test. I put on the headphones, expecting silence like always. Then, a faint beep. My eyes flew wide. Another beep in the other ear. DR. Monroe's face lit up. When the test ended, before he could write anything, I whispered, "I can hear you." My own voice sounded alien after 5 weeks of nothing, but I heard it. Tears poured down. "This is remarkable," he said aloud, and I caught every word. "Your hearing has fully returned." The inflammation finally subsided. It felt miraculous. But then he added something that planted a seed of unease. Given how jarring the transition can be, I'd suggest not announcing it right away. Observe your environment first. Take a day or two before telling anyone. I nodded, but my gut was already twisting. I drove home hearing the engine rumble, the radio, the traffic, pure joy, right? Except it wasn't. Something felt wrong. When I pulled into the driveway, Brandon was home early, unusual. He smiled, kissed my forehead, then grabbed the ever-present notepad and wrote, "How is the doctor?" "Any changes?" I could hear the clock ticking in the kitchen, his breathing, everything. But I picked up the pen and lied. No change. Same as always. Some instinct screamed at me to wait, watch, listen. That night, after he thought I'd gone to sleep, I heard him on the phone in the bathroom, whispering about timing and the plan. And this morning, I heard him talking to Karen right here in our house. That's how I ended up frozen outside the door, heart pounding, listening to my husband and his mother, the same woman who once fined me $250 for non-compliant holiday lights that were literally 1 day early, plot something that treated my deafness like a golden ticket. My heart hammered so loud I was terrified they'd hear it through the wall. But I stayed perfectly still as Brandon kept talking to Karen, his voice low but crystal clear now that the world had sound again. "We need to move fast, Mom. The lawyer says we have a narrow window. Amelia's deafness gives us the perfect cover for the court petition." "Lawyer? What lawyer?" My mind raced. I tiptoed down the hall to the bathroom, turned on the faucet to mask any noise, and try to breathe. This couldn't be happening. Brandon wouldn't. Karen couldn't. But they were. Whatever this was, my deafness was somehow the key. I heard footsteps approaching. Quickly, I flushed the toilet, opened the door, and arranged my face into normal. Brandon stood there, phone pocketed, smiling like nothing was wrong. He grabbed the notepad we kept everywhere and wrote, "Morning. Sleep well." I nodded and scribbled back, "Fine. Going to make coffee." In the kitchen, I moved through the routine. Coffee maker gurgling. I could hear it. Fridge humming, Brandon's footsteps upstairs, but every sound was amplified while I pretended I heard nothing. Brandon came down dressed for work, kissed my cheek, and wrote, "Big meeting today. Might be home late. Love you." I wrote back the same, but the words felt like poison on paper. I watched him leave, heard his car start, then heard him on the phone before he pulled away. "Yeah, Mom. Heading out now. I'll swing by at lunch and we'll finalize the petition. The developer Gerald is holding the spot only if we secure the funds by mid-month." The car faded down Maple Lane. I stood frozen, coffee cup trembling. Call the police? And say what? My husband and his HOA President mother sounded suspicious. No proof, just a gut feeling and half a conversation. I needed more. His home office was just down the hall. Brandon had always been private about it, but he'd never locked it. I tried the knob. It opened. The room was neat as always, desk, computer, our wedding photo staring back happily. I stared at it for a second. Had that smile been fake? I started searching drawers, feeling guilty but desperate. Bank statements, utility bills, normal stuff. Then the filing cabinet in the corner. Bottom drawer, pushed to the back. A plain manila folder, no label. I pulled it out and opened it. My blood turned to ice. Legal documents everywhere. Power of attorney. Medical decision-making authority. Competency Competency evaluation for incapacitated homeowner. My name on every page. Notes in Brandon's handwriting in the margins. Timeline. 6 to 8 weeks documented disability. Karen confirms HOA violations piling up. Grass infractions. Mailbox noncompliance. Unapproved flower colors. Need legal authority established before developer deal closes mid-month. Developer deal? Legal authority over me? I kept reading, hands shaking. Bank statements from our joint account showed transfers I'd never seen. Thousands at a time into an account I didn't recognize. Over 3 weeks, $85,000 gone. My inheritance from my parents, the $200,000 they'd left after their car accident 3 years ago, was supposed to be our safety net, maybe for kids or a bigger house one day. The savings account balance should have been around $215,000. Now it showed only $130,000. He'd already drained $85,000. Rage burned hot in my chest. How dare they? I snapped photos of everything with my phone, documents, statements, notes. Then I found the email printouts between Brandon and someone named Patterson at a law firm. Given Mrs. Bennett's documented hearing loss and inability to respond to HOA notices or manage affairs, the court should approve the petition for financial and property guardianship without issue. I felt sick, ran to the bathroom, and dry heaved. Brandon and Karen were trying to get legal control over me, over my money, my house, because I was deaf, because they thought I was helpless. My phone buzzed. Text from Nicole. Hey, how are you? Want me to swing by? I stared. I wanted to tell her everything, but not yet. I needed proof. Back in the office, I kept digging. That's when I found more HOA-specific papers, stacked violation notices Karen had helpfully intercepted. Fines for grass measured at 2.8 inches, mailbox flag, orientation violation, holiday lights installed one day early last December. Total, $12,000 in bogus penalties they were using to justify property distress. Then the emails between Brandon and Karen. The deafness is a gift, son. She can't hear the warnings, can't attend board meetings to defend herself. We file the incompetence petition, get guardianship, sell the house to Gerald's development crew at a distressed price, and pocket the equity plus her inheritance. Willow Creek gets upgraded standards, we get her cut. Karen had replied, "It's for the community good, darling. Property values will skyrocket once her non-compliant eyesore is gone." I heard a car in the driveway. Heart stopped. Clock said 11 a.m. Brandon wasn't due back. I shoved everything back exactly as found, rushed to the living room, grabbed a book, and forced calm. The door opened. Karen walked in with Brandon. "Is she here?" Karen's voice carried perfectly. "Good. Brandon, are you sure you want to go through with the petition? Once filed, there's no turning back." I kept my eyes glued to the book, barely breathing. I could hear everything. And what came next made me realize this wasn't just betrayal. It was a full HOA power grab. Brandon and Karen were in the entryway, close enough that every word hit like a fresh violation notice. "Mom, we've been over this," Brandon said, irritated but low. "The Willow Creek expansion deal with Gerald is once in a lifetime. He has other investors, but he's saving the spot for us because of you. I need $200,000 to buy in, and that money is sitting in Amelia's inheritance account." Money from her parents, Karen said, hesitation in her voice that wasn't concern for me. It was fear of getting caught. "Money that belongs to both of us legally," Brandon shot back. "We're married. What's hers is mine. Plus, with the HOA liens piling up from her violations, the court will see her as a nuisance property owner who can't comply because she's deaf." I turned a page in my book, though the words blurred. Every muscle tense. "The paperwork," Karen continued. "You're asking for power of attorney over her medical, financial, and HOA compliance decisions. Claiming she's incompetent. She's deaf, Mom. Temporarily incompetent. There's a difference." The casual cruelty in his voice made my stomach churn. "And what happens when her hearing comes back?" Karen asked. "Dr. Monroe said it's possible." A long pause. I held my breath. He said it could take months, Brandon replied. Or never. But even if it does, by then the deal closes. The investment matures in 6 months and triples the money. I'll put back the 200 grand plus profit. Amelia will think I'm a genius for growing our savings while she recovered. And if she finds out before then, another pause, longer. She won't, Brandon said coldly. She can't hear anything, Mom. She's completely dependent. I control everything. Her mail, her bank statements, her email. I've been intercepting the HOA notices for weeks. She has no idea the fines are stacking up to justify the distress petition. I felt tears slide down my cheeks, but didn't wipe them. They moved into the kitchen. I heard the fridge open, cabinets, Karen making her usual herbal tea for community calm. Their voices carried. What about her friend Nicole? Karen asked. Nicole texts her. She visits. Nicole has no access to finances. She's just being a good friend to the poor deaf lady. That's all the neighbors see. Mugs clinked. The electric kettle boiled. Patterson has the papers ready? Karen asked. Yes, appointment at 2 today to finalize. He'll file tomorrow. With her documented medical condition and me as husband, plus my position as your board treasurer, the judge approves within a week. Then I get full authority over accounts, including the inheritance and the competency evaluation DR. Monroe provided on her hearing loss and daily functioning. It's more than enough for temporary guardianship. Temporary guardianship over me, like I was a child who couldn't mow the lawn to spec. The kettle clicked off. Water poured. You know, Karen said slowly, if you just asked her for the money, she probably would have agreed to invest. Maybe. But this way, I don't have to ask. Don't have to explain the risk. Don't have to deal with her worrying about losing her parents' money. It just happens. And with the HOA violations, we can claim she's already failing community standards. So he knew. He knew it was wrong. He just didn't care. There was a knock. Who the hell? Brandon muttered. It's Nicole. I heard him open the door, voice suddenly cheerful. Nicole. Hey, surprise visit. Hi, Brandon. Brought lunch for Amelia. Sweet, but not the best time. Mom's here helping, and Amelia's resting. Oh, hi, Karen. Nicole called. I'll just pop in quick. Haven't seen her in days. I could hear the steel in Nicole's nurse voice. She wasn't leaving. Sure, Brandon said tightly. But quick. She needs rest. Nicole entered the living room. Her sharp eyes took in my pale face, shaking hands, wiped tears. She grabbed the notepad and wrote big. Are you okay? You look upset. This was the moment. Pretend or trust her. I looked at Nicole, my best friend since childhood, the one who'd held me after my parents died. I made the decision. I set the book down carefully, looked her dead in the eyes and mouthed, not wrote, 3 words. I can hear. Nicole's eyes widened, but her nurse training kicked in. She kept her face neutral, wrote on the notepad for Brandon to see. You're warm. Let me check your temperature. Then she pulled out her phone, tilted it away, and typed fast. What's happening? Call police. I typed back, hands trembling. Brandon and Karen trying to steal my inheritance. Lawyer appointment at 2 p.m. Today for POA and guardianship. Forged docs. Need evidence. Nicole's jaw tightened, but her smile stayed casual. She wrote big for show. She needs rest. I'll check tomorrow. Then stood and turned to them with a smile that dripped acid only I caught. Take good care of her, Brandon. She's so lucky to have such a devoted husband. The door closed behind her. I heard her car start, but it didn't fade. She parked down the street, smart girl. Brandon and Karen came back in. That was awkward, Brandon muttered. Don't need Nicole snooping today of all days. She's gone now, Karen said. We should leave soon. Appointment at 2. I want to review the papers one more time. Fine. Let me grab my briefcase from the office. This was my chance. 30 seconds while Brandon was in the office and Karen rinsed mugs. I pulled my phone and texted Nicole. They're leaving for lawyer at 1:30. Stay close. 3 dots. Call on my lawyer friend. Don't move until they leave. Brandon returned, briefcase in hand. He kissed my head. Wrote, Mom and I have errands. Back around 4. Call if you need anything. I nodded with a fake smile. They left. I waited until both cars drove away, counted to 60. Then I was on the phone to Nicole. "Oh my God, Amelia, your voice," she breathed. "When?" "Yesterday." "DR." Monroe cleared me. "Nicole, they're trying to get legal control over me and my money. Documents in the office. Bank transfers stealing $85,000 from my inheritance. Plus stacked HOA fines to justify it. That son of a—" Nicole's voice shook with rage. "Okay, I'm with my friend Karen." "No, not that Karen, my lawyer Karen." "Speakerphone. Tell her everything." For 10 minutes, I spilled it all while Nicole drove back. The hidden folder, the overheard plot, the 2 o'clock appointment with Patterson. "This is fraud," lawyer Karen said sharply. "Forgery, attempted financial exploitation of a disabled person, abuse of HOA authority. Amelia, act now before they file. Get every piece of evidence. Then get to Patterson's office and stop it." Nicole burst through my door. "I'm here. Let's move." We raced to the office. I showed her the folder. Together we photographed everything. Forged signatures, statements, emails, the HOA violation stack Karen had fabricated. "Look at this," Nicole said, holding a note. "Meeting with Gerald. Willow Creek expansion needs $200K by deadline. Amelia's inheritance, perfect timing. Deafness Day opportunity for legal access." Opportunity. They'd written it down. My disability was their golden ticket to a developer kickback. Nicole found more buried emails between Brandon and Karen discussing the plan. Karen had written, "Are you sure this is ethical, son?" Brandon, "It's our money legally. I'm just taking what's already mine. Plus the HOA gets its special assessment paid and property values rise. Win-win for the community." He actually believed it. Delusional and criminal. Lawyer Karen's voice came through the phone. "How much time?" I checked the clock. 45 minutes until the appointment. "Then move now. Get to Patterson's office. Call from the parking lot. Make it clear any papers with your name are fraudulent and you're competent and on your way." Nicole grabbed my arm. "Can you do this?" "Face them. I thought about my parents, their life savings meant for my security, not this greedy HOA scheme. I thought about Brandon's voice calling my deafness an opportunity. "Yes," I said. "I can." We jumped in Nicole's car and sped through traffic. My hands shook as I dialed Patterson and Associates from the parking lot. "Patterson and Associates, how may I help?" "This is Amelia Bennett. I need to speak with Mr. Patterson immediately regarding my husband Brandon's 2 o'clock appointment today." Pause. "Mrs. Bennett, I'm sorry, but Mr. Bennett indicated you were unable to use the phone due to your medical condition." "I can hear perfectly fine," I said, voice steady and cold. "My hearing returned yesterday. Please tell Mr. Patterson that if he values his law license, he will not proceed with any appointment involving my name until I am present. I'll be there in 2 minutes." Another pause. "Please hold." 30 seconds later, a man's voice. "Mrs. Bennett, this is James Patterson. I'm very confused. Your husband scheduled an appointment to discuss power of attorney arrangements due to your hearing loss and related HOA compliance complications. Mr. Patterson, I have fully recovered. I am completely competent. I have never authorized any power of attorney, and I have evidence that my husband has forged documents, been stealing from our accounts, and conspired with the HOA President to exploit my temporary disability for a developer deal. I am walking into your building right now." Nicole and I got out and headed for the entrance. Through the glass, I saw Brandon's car pull in. "He's here," I said. "Good," Nicole replied fiercely. "Let him see you." We walked through the doors just as Brandon and Karen stepped out of their car. I turned and looked directly at them. Our eyes met. Brandon's face went confident to confused to bone white in 3 seconds. He realized I was standing, walking, talking on the phone. I could hear. He broke into a run toward the building. Karen grabbed his arm, panicked. I turned away and walked up to the receptionist. "Amelia Bennett to see Mr. Patterson." I believe my husband is right behind me. The glass doors burst open. Brandon's voice cut through the quiet lobby, loud and desperate. Amelia, you can hear? I turned slowly. Karen stood behind him, hand on his arm, face pale. Yes, Brandon, I said, watching him flinch at my voice. I can hear. I regained my hearing 2 days ago, and I've heard everything. Everything? What do you mean everything? But his eyes said he knew. A door opened. Tall man in expensive suit. Mrs. Bennett, I'm James Patterson. Perhaps we should step into the conference room. I don't think that's necessary, I said, eyes locked on Brandon. I just need to make one thing clear. I am not incapacitated. I am fully competent, and I have never authorized any power of attorney or guardianship papers. Amelia, please let me explain, Brandon started. Explain what? My voice sharpened. Explain how you told your mother that my deafness might solve your problems? Explain how you planned to steal my inheritance to fund your Willow Creek expansion deal with Gerald? Explain how you forged legal documents while Karen piled on fake HOA violations I couldn't possibly respond to because I was deaf. Karen made a small sound. Brandon's face went from white to red. I pulled out my phone. Mr. Patterson, I have photographs of documents my husband hid in his office. Documents with my forged signature, bank statements showing unauthorized transfers of $85,000, and emails between you discussing my alleged incompetence, plus the HOA violation stack Karen fabricated to justify the distress claim. Patterson's expression shifted to alarm. I think we all need to sit down and discuss this calmly. No, I said, I don't need to sit. I need you to know that if any papers involving my name are filed with any court, I will immediately report you to the state bar for participating in fraud. Mrs. Bennett, I assure you, I had no knowledge of any fraud. Your husband came to me with what appeared to be legitimate concerns about his deaf wife who couldn't manage her own affairs or HOA compliance. I cut him off. Did you even try to contact me? Did you ask to meet me yourself? Or did you just take his word and the HOA president's because it was easier? Patterson's silence was answer enough. Brandon found his voice. Amelia, you don't understand. I was trying to help us. The expansion deal is legitimate. Gerald confirmed we could triple the investment in 6 months. I was going to put all the money back, plus profit. You would never have known it was gone. But I'm deaf, so what does it matter, right? The words came bitter. I can't hear, so I can't manage money. Can't make decisions. I'm just helpless and vulnerable, and you and your mother can do whatever you want. That's not what I meant. I heard you, Brandon. My voice rose, months of fear and betrayal pouring out. I stood outside our bedroom door yesterday morning and heard you tell Karen that my deafness was an opportunity. I heard you discuss forging my signature. I heard you plan to steal from me while using HOA rules to bury me in fines. Karen stepped forward, voice shaking. Amelia, you have to understand, Brandon was under so much pressure with this investment opportunity, and he just made some poor choices. You helped him, I said, turning to her. You knew everything. You encouraged him. You used your position as HOA president to fabricate violations so the court would see me as a non-compliant homeowner. Don't pretend you're innocent. I think, Nicole spoke up coldly, that Mrs. Bennett needs to contact the police. This isn't poor choices. This is criminal fraud, forgery, and financial exploitation. Brandon's eyes went wide. The police, Amelia, no, please. I'm your husband. We can work this out. We don't need to involve. You're right, I said quietly. You are my husband. You were supposed to be my partner. 4 or 5 weeks, I was terrified and alone in silence. I couldn't hear anything. Couldn't do my job. Felt helpless and scared. And instead of supporting me, you and your mother saw it as a chance to steal from me, using HOA power to justify it all. I wasn't stealing. I was borrowing, with forged documents and lies. My voice broke slightly. You were getting legal control over me, Brandon. Over my medical decisions, my finances, my house. You were making me incompetent in the eyes of the law so you could do whatever you wanted with my parents' money. He had no answer. Patterson cleared his throat. Mr. Bennett, I think you should leave. Mrs. Bennett, I'm canceling this appointment, and I will not be filing any paperwork. If you want to pursue legal action against your husband and the HOA president, that's your right. She's not going to do that, Brandon said desperately. Amelia, please. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But I love you. Don't throw away 6 years of marriage over this. I looked at him, really looked. This man I'd trusted completely, who'd promised to be there in sickness and in health. You threw it away, I said softly. The moment you decided my disability was an opportunity instead of a tragedy. The moment you chose money and HOA kickbacks over me. I turned to Patterson. I want the names of divorce attorneys, good ones. And yes, I will be filing a police report for fraud, forgery, and financial exploitation. Brandon's face crumbled. Please, please don't. I'll put all the money back today. I'll cancel the investment. You'll face the consequences of your choices, I said, just like I had to face 5 weeks of deafness. Just like I had to face the truth about who you really are. Nicole put her hand on my shoulder. Let's go. As we walked toward the door, Karen called out, Amelia, please. He's my son. Don't destroy his life over this. I stopped and turned one last time. He tried to destroy mine, I said. And he would have succeeded if I hadn't regained my hearing at exactly the right moment to hear the truth. We left them standing there, Brandon, Karen, and Patterson, all facing the consequences. Nicole drove me straight to the police station. I handed over every photo, every document. The detective's eyes widened at the HOA violation stack and the developer emails. Within hours, warrants were issued. Brandon was arrested that afternoon for forgery and embezzlement. Karen, the mighty HOA president, was suspended pending investigation, her community standards suddenly under scrutiny by the entire neighborhood. The developer deal collapsed. My inheritance was frozen and protected. The next weeks were a whirlwind of sweet, satisfying chaos. The Willow Creek HOA board called an emergency meeting. Neighbors who'd once nodded along to Karen's nonsense showed up in force once the story leaked. I stood at the podium, now able to hear every gasp, and played the recordings I'd secretly made on my phone the morning of the confrontation. Gasps turned to outrage. One by one, residents shared their own stories of absurd fines and bullying. Karen's empire crumbled in real time. She tried her usual sugary act. I was only protecting property values, everyone. But the crowd wasn't buying it. Protecting your kickback, you mean, someone yelled. The board voted to dissolve her position on the spot. Brandon begged for reconciliation in texts and voicemails I finally listened to just for the closure. I blocked him. The divorce papers were filed the next day. My house, free of liens and violations, was mine again. I even planted some unapproved roses in the front yard, just because I could. Nicole and I laughed about it over wine. The dark humor finally hitting. Nothing says community spirit like an HOA Karen measuring grass while plotting grand theft. Months later, the neighborhood felt different. Lighter. The new HOA president was a reasonable guy who actually listened. Fines dropped. Rules relaxed. I went back to teaching, hearing every laugh from my students. And every time I drove past Karen's house, now sporting a discreet for sale sign because her legal bills were piling up, I smiled. The woman who'd spent years lording over Willow Creek with her clipboards and color palettes had finally been measured and found wanting. My deafness had been terrifying. But the real silence, the one I'd broken, was the silence of people who let power go unchecked. I'd listened. And when the moment came, I'd spoken loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. Justice, it turned out, sounded even sweeter than the birds at dawn. And in Willow Creek, HOA, the Karen era was officially over.